how to fix the holes in our
Hello and welcome, and thanks for tuning in. You're watching Gravitas. My name is Priyanka Sharma. Here's our show for tonight. Will Justin Trudeau's baseless attack on India cost him his job? Tonight on Gravitas, I will prove to you that this is not just conjecture, but a reality now. Voters in Canada are angry. They had put faith in Justin Trudeau, but he has failed as Prime Minister. Look at Canada's cost of living crisis, its housing crisis, Trudeau's unprovoked row with India over the killing of a terrorist. The people of Canada have realized that Trudeau is only talk and no action. Tonight, we'll remind Canada about the economic cost of starting tensions with a friendly country. You see, Canada's education system is rattled. After all, how many Indian students are still heading to Canada? You'll be shocked to know. We'll never know why Canada decided to make baseless allegations against India, but tonight, I'll tell you about the price which it is now paying. Is this the end of Trudeau's political career? That is our cover story tonight. Now, Russian security agents are on a hunt for one of their own. They suspect an inside job, an alleged plot to assassinate none other than the president, Vladimir Putin. Who could have gone rogue within the Russian ranks? But Putin has other priorities than chasing a rogue officer who may want to kill him. He instead is beefing up Russia's nuclear arsenal. A new nuclear missile was tested, and it can reach targets as far as the United States of America. Will Putin press the nuclear button? And here in India, your favorite Bollywood celebs are being summoned and questioned by the government. They lend their faces to a dubious gaming app. The platform has now been called a scam. What were Indian celebs thinking? Meanwhile, big money is at play at the World Cup. Everyone is excited to watch the Indo-Pak match in Ahmedabad, of course. And if you were lucky enough to get tickets, you would know by now how much business this one cricket match has ushered in. On the show tonight, we tell you all about the sport's oldest rivalry. Stay with me. A few weeks ago, Justin Trudeau made a grave mistake. The Canadian Prime Minister let his political ambitions hijack his actions. Blinded by appeasement politics, Trudeau decided to hurl an absurd allegation on India. He accused India or Indian agents of killing Khalistani terrorist Hardeep Singh Nijjar. This ill-advised, unwise move has boomeranged, and today Trudeau's own political career hangs in the balance. Let me show you a video.
I'm not shaking their hand, bro. You're
Why is that, sir?
You the entire country. I'm not shaking their hand, bro. You're
Why is that, sir?
You the entire country.
You saw that. Trudeau is now being accused of ruining Canada. People don't want to shake his hands. Don't be surprised, this is just a glimpse of how disillusioned Canadians have become courtesy their leader, Justin Trudeau. There's nervousness in Canada. There is uncertainty and concern about the future. Canada's academic system is nervous because international students no longer feel safe in the country. The Canadian dream has become Canadian dread, especially for students coming from India. Look at this Reuters report now. Indian students are considering delaying their courses in Canada. Parents in Punjab don't want their sons and daughters to board a flight to Canada, and in Canada, Universities are being forced to go out of their way. They are desperately reassuring Indian students of their safety. Why wouldn't they? If Indian students don't go to Canada, how will Ottawa finance its entire education system? Every year, international students contribute more than 20 billion Canadian dollars to the Canadian economy. Now that's over $14 billion. A large chunk of this money comes from Indian students. They hold roughly 40% of the study permits, 40%. In 2022 alone, at least 225,000 Indians traveled to Canada for higher studies. Each of them spent an average of $16,000. You see, Canada's education system banks on Indians. Today, the famous University of Toronto is nervous. Of the 86,000 plus students who entered the campus this year, more than 2,400 were from India. What if the number falls in the coming academic year? One estimate claims even if there is a 5% drop in the number of Indian students in 2024, Ottawa will suffer an economic jolt of $700 million. Let me repeat that number for you, $700 million. Now this is just the minimum immediate cost. The long-term cost is devastating, both financially and also in terms of reputation. The education is one of Canada's biggest exports. It outpaces auto parts, lumber, or even aircraft. And Trudeau here is systematically jeopardizing this industry. He's targeting the golden swan, the golden goose, by severing ties with India, by giving impunity to terrorists at home, by risking Indian expats, students and diplomats. And you know what? Trudeau's political career will pay the price for this. Tell me one thing. Who in their right mind in the education sector will vote for Trudeau come 2025? The business owners whose universities suffer a drop in revenue, will they vote? Or the education consultants who lose the commission from Indian students? Or the language teachers who find themselves out of jobs? Who is going to vote for Justin Trudeau now? Will the house owners vote? Those who no longer have students queuing up to rent their apartments? An average citizen is fed up with Justin Trudeau's theatrics and undelivered promises. If you don't believe me, let me play out that entire video for you now. Take a look.
Anybody afford a home in this day? They're charging people carbon tax. You got 9 V8s here idling for 30 minutes. Your carbon footprint is increasing. We're getting charged for what?
We know what we're doing.
It's not stopping.
We're putting a price on pollution, and we're returning it to families like yours.
I don't think so. You're sending it over to Ukraine, right?
No.
Yeah. You send it over to the guy that you were with that slaughtered his own country.
You've been listening to Putin, have you?
Putin? No. We definitely don't listen to your propaganda, eh?
Not just Putin and disinformation, Trudeau blamed international students for the housing crisis in Canada. Whom is he appeasing by villainizing international students? Who will vote for him come 2025? Trudeau's own coalition partners have had enough, in fact. Jagmeet Singh, for example. He is the chief of the new Democratic Party. He has been publicly criticizing Trudeau for his absurd comments. When his government presented its 2023 budget, Trudeau made a long list of promises, including making life in Canada more affordable, making energy more affordable. Also, building a Canada that works for everyone. So, Mr. Trudeau, whom exactly is this Canada working for currently? Neither those living in the country nor those representing Canada abroad. There is a housing crisis at home. There is an increased cost of living. And by picking a fight with India, Trudeau has exacerbated the state of the Canadian economy. You know what? Unhappy voters can be unsparing, but unhappy diplomats aren't kind either. Some Canadian diplomats have had to face ultimate humiliation. They had to pack their bags and leave India with their families. Some of them have now been temporarily adjusted in Singapore or Kuala Lumpur. All of this because Justin Trudeau wanted to open appeasement outposts in India, flood the mission because of the compulsions of his complex politics. It may only be a matter of time before these policies cost Trudeau his political career. Now, here's a question a lot of people have been asking. What was Justin Trudeau thinking? Did he think he would get away with levelling baseless allegations against India? Perhaps he did. Because that's how the West functions. It looks at the world from a position of entitlement, from a presumed position of power, much like a bully. The West thinks it can dictate terms, except it can't. Not anymore, at least not with India. This is something New Delhi has repeatedly shown the world. Be it with regard to its position on the Ukraine war or by calling out Canadian absurdity. The world is taking notice. Today, Russia's President Vladimir Putin is praising India. He recently said, and I quote, "The West is trying to create an enemy out of everyone who does not agree with their monopoly. Everyone is at risk, even India. But Indian leadership is acting independently in the interest of its nation." Putin went on to call India a powerful and mighty country. Let me read out what he said. India has more than 1.5 billion of population, more than 7% of economic growth. That's a powerful country, a mighty country, and it's growing stronger and stronger under the leadership of Prime Minister Modi. Putin was speaking in the context of the West trying to lecture India on the import of Russian oil. We all know that story. How the West tried to drag India into taking a position that favors the West and the West alone in a war of the West's own making, a war that India has nothing to do with. The Russian president has underlined some hard facts for the West. He said independent states and strong states cannot be arm-twisted. Any attempt at bullying such a state or making baseless allegations against such a state is bound to boomerang, and clearly Trudeau knows this now. Next question. Did Vladimir Putin survive an assassination attempt? It's a question many in the West are now asking. There are reports claiming that Russian security services are hunting for one of their own, one who tried to assassinate the Russian president. What's the basis for these claims? A Telegram channel closely linked to Moscow's security agencies. It recently revealed that an agent from within Russia's secret service ranks was tasked with murdering Putin. Here's what we know so far. The alleged plot was unearthed by Russia's Ministry of Internal Affairs earlier this week. The revelation was made by a specialist in the Presidential Administrative Directorate. The specialist apparently met a businessman at a swanky bar 40 miles from Moscow. And during this meeting, the businessman revealed encountering a whistleblower with a service identification card. This whistleblower allegedly told him that he was given an assignment to remove Vladimir Putin. After a couple of days of working, the businessman decided to share his story with authorities. And this is how the plot was uncovered. Now, we don't know if these reports are true, but if they are, this won't be the first time that Putin has faced such an attempt. In the past, there have been at least 4 high-profile attempts on his life, the latest being in May last year. The revelation was made by Major General Kirilo Badanov, the chief of Ukraine's defense intelligence. He said that there was an attempt to murder Putin. By whom? No one knows. Here's what he told a Ukrainian newspaper last year. There was an attempt to assassinate Putin. He was even attacked, it is said, by representatives of the Caucasus not so long ago. This is non-public information. It was an absolutely unsuccessful attempt, but it really happened. It was about 2 months ago. There was no publicity about this event, but it took place. The second attempt on Putin's life was on the 2nd of March back in 2008, the day Russia held its presidential elections. Putin was attending an open-air concert on St. Basil's Slope. A Tajik man was sent to murder him. The attempt failed. The man was later nabbed by Russia's Federal Security Service. The third attempt came in February of 2012. 2 mercenaries were nabbed from Odessa, a seaport in the Black Sea. They both were from Russia's North Caucasus. Both belong to a group seeking an Islamist state within Russia. And their plan was to go to Moscow and kill the president. Even their efforts failed, all thanks to Russian security services. The fourth attempt was this year, on the 27th of April. This report emerged. It said Kyiv recently hatched a plot to kill Putin outside the Russian capital. The plot was apparently the brainchild of Ukraine's secret service. This report was based on a claim made by a prominent Ukrainian journalist. His name is Yuri Romanenko. He's the chief editor of Koilia, a Ukrainian website. In an extensive post on Twitter, X now, he claimed that last week Ukrainian intelligence officials received information about Putin's visit to the industrial park in Rudnevo, and accordingly they came up with a plan to kill him. They apparently sent a UJ-22 kamikaze drone. This drone was laden with 17 kilograms of explosives. It managed to fly over the border and pass by Russia's air defense systems. It was supposed to explode and kill Putin right when he arrives in Rudnevo. But before it could do this, the drone crashed. Now, these were just a few instances. There could have been other attempts as well. But given Russia's state of secrecy, it's hard to state an exact number. What we can say for sure is that Putin has indeed become paranoid about his safety. Reports in recent months have described him as being increasingly isolated. They say he has started surrounding himself with a very small group of advisors and security personnel. Some reports even say that he has started employing a body double at various official events around Russia. He's doing so to keep up with his quote-unquote man of the people appearance, while really he's hiding his fears. Whatever be the case, the timing of this revelation of this alleged assassination plot is interesting. It comes ahead of an announcement next month, an announcement that Putin will seek a new 6-year term. You see, elections in Russia are due in March next year. Elections are going to be highly watched out, and at a time like this, news reports of a plot to kill Putin will by all means do more to build his image than ruin it. Just think about it. Did a grenade blow up the Wagner boss's plane in August? Was it an inside job instead of a missile strike as rumored? Why does Vladimir Putin want a drug test for his former rival's corpse? These questions arise after Putin's shocking revelation about the mercenary group leader who once challenged his authority. Take a look at this next report.
The head of the investigative committee reported to me a few days ago. Fragments of the hand grenades were found in the bodies of the victims of the air disaster. There was no external impact on the plane. This is an established fact of the result of the expert examination conducted by the investigative committee of the Russian Federation. But the investigation has not been completed as of yet.
6 weeks after the Wagner Group chief Yevgeny Prigozhin and several of his close associates died in a plane crash, the Russian president has made shocking revelations about his former rival's death. He claims the plane crash resulted from hand grenades detonating inside the aircraft, not a missile attack as rumored. What's even more astounding is the possibility that they were all under the influence of cocaine at the time of the crash. Putin stated that these revelations came to his attention a few days ago, when the head of Russia's investigative committee reported them to him. Putin said that when the police raided the Wagner offices in St. Petersburg shortly after their short-lived revolt, they found 5 kilograms of cocaine, $100 million in cash, along with weapons and fake documents from the properties. In making these claims, Putin appears to be attempting to discredit the assertions made by US officials. In the immediate aftermath of the crash, unidentified US officials alleged that the aircraft had been shot down. The Russian president has not provided further details on how a grenade or grenades could have detonated on board. But he slammed the investigators for not carrying out alcohol or drug tests on the bodies of those who died in the crash.
Unfortunately, there was no examination of the blood of the deceased for alcohol or drugs, although we know that after the Wagner mutiny in the company in St. Petersburg, the FSB found not only 10 billion rubles in cash, but also 5 kgs of cocaine.
10 миллиардов наличными, но и 5 килограмм кокаина.
On August 23rd, the private Embraer jet carrying Prigozhin crashed north of Moscow. The crash claimed the lives of all 10 people on board, including 2 other top Wagner figures, Prigozhin's 4 bodyguards and a crew of 3. Prigozhin died 2 months after leading an armed mutiny against the Kremlin. specifically targeting Russia's military top brass. Before his death, Prigozhin portrayed his Wagner group as the world's most battle-hardened fighting force. In fact, the Wagner group played a central role in Russia's deadliest and bloodiest battle to capture the Ukrainian stronghold of Bakhmut. The fierce Battle of Bakhmut has been likened to a meat grinder. By May 2023, they had captured the eastern Ukrainian city and subsequently handed it over to Russian forces. Following this success, intense internal conflicts emerged between the Wagner leadership and the Russian High Command. It became increasingly evident that Prigozhin accused Putin's top military brass, Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu, and General Staff Valery Gerasimov of incompetence. The feud culminated in an armed mutiny in late June. Prigozhin marched his troops to Moscow. However, the mutiny was short-lived. Prigozhin called off the rebellion, signed a deal with Moscow, and moved his troops to Belarus, a key ally of Moscow. His mutiny had posed the biggest challenge to Putin's authority since the former KGB spy came to power in 1999. 2 months later, he died, along with several high-ranking Wagner operatives in the plane crash. Western experts suggested that it could have been a premeditated crime, but the Kremlin has rejected claims that Putin had Prigozhin killed in revenge. Since then, the fate of the Wagner group has been unclear. Nevertheless, Russia has a history of mysterious deaths of Kremlin opponents during Putin's tenure. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Speaking of things Putin is notorious for doing, he now seems to be ready to take Russia's offensive nuclear. The Russian president has unveiled a new kind of nuclear weapon, one that is bound to give Russia's enemies sleepless nights, especially its Cold War-era rival, the United States of America. Russia claims to have successfully tested its nuclear-powered cruise missile, but it's no ordinary one. It has been touted as a nuclear missile that can hit targets as far away as the USA. The name of this new weapon is Burevestnik, a nuclear-powered intercontinental cruise missile. In the past, the Burevestnik, also known as Skyfall by NATO, has faced several trial failures. It was reportedly involved in an accident leading to multiple fatalities. So what is this new weapon that has the West worried? The Burevestnik was first mentioned by Putin in 2018. It is a ground-launched, low-lying cruise missile that is capable of carrying a nuclear warhead. It can stay aloft for a much longer time than other missiles, and it can cover much more distance due to nuclear propulsion. It has Western experts worried because they say that a nuclear engine could be highly unreliable. While Putin has not mentioned when the latest test took place, Western media reports say that the test could have taken place recently. These suggestions have been made based on movements of aircraft and vehicles at a Russian base in the Arctic. And why does this missile matter? Precisely because of its range. Russian reports say that the Burevestnik could have a range of up to 20,000 kilometers. Can you even fathom that? It means it could be based anywhere in Russia and strike targets all the way in the United States. The same reports also say that its altitude is just 50 to 100 meters. That is much lower than a conventionally powered cruise missile. And this makes the Burevestnik missile harder for air defense radar to detect. Burevestnik, it literally translates to storm petrel. And Putin says that it would make any country who plans to use a nuclear weapon against Russia think twice. If any country dares to do so, he says, and I quote, "Such a number of our missiles would appear in the air that not a single enemy would have a chance of survival." Think about that. If that doesn't sound ominous enough, sample this. A 2020 report by the US Air Force's Intelligence Center said that if Russia successfully brought the Burevestnik into service, it would give Moscow a unique weapon with intercontinental range capability. Unique being the operative word here. A dangerous sign perhaps because nuclear experts have long questioned if this missile can even enter service. Naturally, Putin's announcement has caused a stir in international defense circles. And this is because since the Ukraine war began last year, Putin has continuously shown off Russia's nuclear strength. He has sent warnings to the West, saying that using nuclear weapons against Russia would be really a bad idea. The recent advancements in Russia's strategic systems would further complicate Moscow-Washington talks regarding limits on nuclear weapons. Remember, earlier this year, Russia withdrew from the New START treaty, an agreement that aims to restrict nuclear arsenal. It is also scheduled to expire in 2026. So if any of this is any indication, Russia is in no mood to end the nuclear tensions amid the Ukraine war. It might be high time for NATO to ask itself, what will be the cost of prolonging this war, this conflict? What happens if Putin presses the nuclear button? One should shudder at just the thought. Moving on, there's a new scam app on the market. It's called the Mahadev App. It is a platform for users to place bets and earn money. Except it is fraudulently hogging all their money. Over the last week, several A-list Indian celebrities have been summoned by India's crime-fighting agency, the Enforcement Directorate. All in relation to this app, the Mahadev App. This includes big names: actor Ranbir Kapoor, actress Shraddha Kapoor, Huma Qureshi, Hina Khan and comedian Kapil Sharma. All these public figures had been actively promoting the betting app, but we'll get to that later. Let's first discuss how this Mahadev betting app actually works. How did it come under the scanner and who else has it dragged down with it? The Mahadev gaming app is an online betting platform. Users can engage in live gambling across various games, including poker, cards, badminton, tennis, football and cricket. How does it work? Through a network of websites and closed groups on various instant messaging platforms. Just like that, it reportedly rakes in 200 crore rupees daily. Now that is more than $24 million in a single day's work. Here's how it works. The perpetrators lure in individuals by posting contact numbers on websites. They entice them to participate and profit. These numbers are accessible primarily through WhatsApp. When users reach out to these numbers, they receive two distinct contact numbers. One facilitates money deposits and points for user IDs used in betting. The other number connects to the website for cashing out points from the assigned IDs. The Mahadev app opened hundreds of call centers across 4 countries. This includes Malaysia, Thailand, India and the UAE. These call centers would run round the clock to create subsidiary apps and websites and interact with customers. But here's the catch. All the bets and games that Mahadev ran would be rigged. Most new users would make some profits initially, but they would pool some money into their accounts and get addicted. In the long run, they would almost all end up incurring heavy losses. This money went into the pockets of the operators and the operators alone. This illicit operation has been active for the past 4 years. So who owns this app? 2 men from Chhattisgarh's Bhilai, Saurabh Chandrakar and Ravi Uppal. Until a few years ago, Chandrakar ran a juice shop in Nehru Nagar. Uppal owned a tire shop. And reports say that both of them got addicted to gambling. They went to Dubai to build an empire together. They set up the Mahadev online betting app and are now making more than $24 million in a single day. Both of them established around 4,000 panel operators in India for betting. Each panel had some 200 customers who placed bets. Money started to trickle in. But how did it all go south? Because of a big fat wedding. Reports say that Chandrakar decided to tie the knot in February. He hired a Mumbai-based events company to organize the extravagant affair. His family members flew to the UAE in private jets. Indian celebrities such as Tiger Shroff, Sunny Leone, Vishal Dadlani, Atif Aslam, Neha Kakkar, Rahat Fateh Ali Khan are among others who were called for this gala event. But here is where the fraudsters went wrong. They paid for the entire $24 million wedding in cold, hard cash. Imagine that. The word got out. India's Enforcement Directorate was alerted, and now both the founders of this dubious platform are wanted. The agency has raided several locations in Kolkata, Bhopal, Mumbai and other cities. Take a look. But how are B-Town celebs connected to the app? You see, actor Ranbir Kapoor endorsed the betting platform. His face was on social media ads for the Mahadev App. He was reportedly among the highest paid celebs paid by the app's promoters. And ED officials allege that the money that Kapoor received came from the collections all through the scam. The probe has now been widened to other celebrities, and besides that, the ED has their eyes on another 14 of them. Then there are 100 other influencers who attended this wedding in February. The celebs are not being summoned as accused. Let's remind you of that. But to understand how the app functioned and earned millions. But what I want to ask is, didn't these celebrities care about where they were promoting their money? Were they fine as long as the money flowed into their accounts? According to the Public Gambling Act, all kinds of gambling in India is illegal. The Indian government is also working on a framework to regulate online betting. So why did these celebs actively promote it? It's a big question. Let's now shift our focus to Belgium. Chinese e-commerce company Alibaba is under scrutiny. Belgium is questioning the company's presence in its cargo airport and suspects that the Chinese brand could be sharing data with Beijing. Alibaba has denied any wrongdoing, but Belgium officials say that Chinese companies could be misusing their right to share data with Chinese authorities. But the question is, what if Beijing is sharing data for non-commercial purposes? Is Belgium facing a potential security and economic crisis? Will China's Alibaba be caught spying on Belgium? Take a look.
Europe has been increasing scrutiny on China. The EU has been reassessing its traditional openness to trade with China. Governments fear possible security risks posed by Chinese companies. And now another case of potential Chinese spying has made news. Belgium's intelligence services are monitoring Chinese e-commerce company Alibaba. Alibaba's logistics arm at a cargo airport in the city of Liège is under surveillance. A major area of concern is that the company's software systems can collect sensitive economic information. The logistics arm, called SciNow, can also access information about consumers. What makes the situation of urgent concern is that, according to a legislation, Chinese companies are obligated to share data with Chinese authorities. Experts say that knowledge about important changes in consumption patterns and knowledge about the logistical chain is valuable for China as a country that tries to dominate the supply chain. Although a nation trying to dominate the market is fine. But what if the information is used for non-commercial purposes? What if the data is used to attack the nation's vulnerabilities? Such acts would concern Belgium's state security services. The security services say that it is trying to detect and fight against possible spying and interference activities carried out by Chinese entities, including Alibaba. Following the accusations against Alibaba, its logistics arm has denied the allegations and says that it follows all laws and regulations. So why is Belgium acting so late? We ask this because in 2018, Alibaba signed an agreement with the Belgian government. The company was allowed to open an e-commerce trade hub, which included investments in logistics infrastructure. Concerns on potential espionage were first raised before the hub was built. But SciNow denied the accusations and said that data security and privacy protection was of paramount concern to the business. Will Belgium be able to take strong actions against China this time? It could take inspiration from Germany. Last year, the German government blocked the sale of a semiconductor factory to China due to security fears. Berlin did the same when Chinese shipping giant Costco was scheduled to buy a stake in the operator of a Hamburg port terminal. Following decades of relative openness to China, recent incidents prove that the West is now more cautious of Chinese companies. Will Belgium prove their suspicions right? How long will China keep denying?
The cricket frenzy has gripped India. The ICC World Cup has begun in a nation known for its love and passion for cricket. As fans go crazy buying match tickets and booking hotels, reports say that the world event could boost India's economy by $2.4 billion. Although the matches will be played across 10 cities, the city of Ahmedabad is preparing for one of the biggest events. No points for guessing, the city will host the India-Pakistan match. The craze for the match has shot up hotel reservations by 200% in the city. No matter how turbulent relations get between the two nations, an India-Pakistan match brings all cricket fans together. So when will the India versus Pak match take place? What should fans look forward to? Let's now get into the details. This is the first time India will host the World Cup since 2011. The 13th edition of the World Cup will include 48 one-day international matches scheduled across a 2-month period. India will play its first match on October 8th against Australia. But it's not the India-Australia match that fans are looking forward to. The India versus Pakistan match is a real juggernaut. The October 14th match will represent the most famous sports rivalry in the world. And let me remind you, I'm not talking about just a cricket match. The India-Pakistan cricket rivalry goes down in history. The matches have played as a tool for peace. Let's take Muhammad Zia-ul-Haq as an example. He was a former president of Pakistan. In 1987, he alleged that India was amassing troops near Pakistan's borders. But when the Pakistani cricket team was on an India tour, Zia-ul-Haq came to India to watch the Jaipur Test match. After he and his Indian counterpart Rajiv Gandhi watched the match, tensions between the nations had diminished, and both countries withdrew thousands of troops from the border. On October 14, the world will not just watch two cricket teams play against each other, it will witness a politically and emotionally charged battle. India-Pakistan matches have toured the world, and now its next station is at the Narendra Modi Stadium in the city of Ahmedabad. But will the match drown like the last few times? The good news is that the Indian Met Department has predicted clear skies for the day and absolutely no rain. While reports say that the ICC World Cup could usher in $2.6 billion into the Indian economy, the India-Pak match will single-handedly contribute tons. Reports say that Ahmedabad has seen a 200% rise in room reservations when compared to the month of August. Hotel fares have shot up by 150%. Fares have risen by 80% when compared to earlier weeks. On the other hand, many fans would like to host a party or watch the match at home. Experts say that this would help boost different sectors like food delivery platforms, quick commerce, alco-bev, soft drinks, media, and even online gaming. Experts say that the cricket craze may raise inflation rates between 0.15% and 0.25% for October and November. Despite the rise, the matches are expected to support the government through increased taxes on ticket sales, hotel bookings, restaurant reservations, and food delivery. The cherry on the top for India's economic growth is that it is the festive season. Experts say that matches like India versus Pakistan will lead to sentimental purchases of all merchandise. From cricket diplomacy to boosting the country's GDP, the upcoming India-Pakistan match is set to break new records. Let it be fans in the stadium or cricket fanatics hosting parties. This ICC World Cup is set to be memorable for all fans. Now it is Friday, so time now for some food for thought. If you bury your head in the sand and pretend that no one can see you, can you get away with it? I ask this question because there is a new trend on social media. A term that once had a negative connotation has now become a hype term for Gen Z. I'm talking about TikTok's latest trend, being the Lulu is the only solulu. Well, delulu stands for delusion and solulu stands for solution. So this new trend essentially embraces being delusional as the only solution. But is there an upside to being delusional? Is it worth taking seriously? The answer is mostly yes. Let me tell you why. Sample this. I'm sure if you are on Instagram, you must have heard about the tube girl, a trend that was started by Sabrina Bassoon, who has gone viral now for filming herself lip-syncing and dancing to catchy pop songs while on public transport. And people are loving it. They say her confidence radiates through the screen. Since her first Tube Girl video went viral, other women have been inspired to flaunt what they've got, without any inhibition, without any shame, while in public. A kind of confidence now being described as the Tube Girl effect. This Tube Girl effect has become the poster child for being delusional. What does it mean? What does embracing delusion as the only solution look like? Well, the Gen Z in our newsroom say that this phrase is about faking confidence. It's about taking one's ambitions and turning them into a reality. Despite all odds, it's similar to manifestation. It reinforces the power of belief and self-talk. So is delusion the only solution? It's up for debate. Honestly, some have talked about the problematic aspects of this trend. They say it's just a catchphrase at the end of the day and that one should work on empowering oneself by keeping themselves in touch with reality. Others disagree. They say it's an effective way to become more confident. Like the idea of manifestation, embracing delusion gives some the permission to go after what they want. Now you may be wondering, all that's fine, but what do therapists say? Well, it's positive. Some therapists describe it as a self-efficacy tool, saying that the term can help people address their insecurities. It pushes one out of their comfort zone. It helps in coping with the disappointment that often arises when we don't get what we want, when our desired outcomes don't appear in front of us or we feel embarrassed. They say it gives you the nudge you need sometimes in life to challenge yourself in life, which frankly can be very tough to do. But can being delusional mean self-deception? Some say it does. Older generations believe that Gen Z has had it too easy. Obviously, the line between childhood and adulthood has moved a lot over the past few decades. A century ago, the First World War saw young men go into battle, at least those who were deemed old enough to fight. But then they were not old enough to vote. The voting age was then set at 21. In the first half of the 20th century, women and their first child as teenagers, but that's hardly an excuse for calling today's generation's life easy. Gen Z is struggling. From climate change to the toxic world of social media to the current Ukraine war, the scope of the problem is international. And so maybe, just maybe, embracing delusional can also perhaps be empowering. You can focus on the psychological principle of positive thinking, but if it helps you achieve your goals, how can it be a bad thing? This delusional mindset reinforces the power of self-talk, turning into ideas into action. So I would suggest maybe embrace a touch of delusion and empower yourself to break free from your comfort zone, break through the barriers, take new risks. And if things don't go as planned, remember, you were simply being delulu. Our next story is about a man. Not just any man, but one who owned a plane. Not just any plane, but an unassuming 1976 Cessna 180 single-engine plane. What did he do with this plane? Scale new heights, visit some tourist attractions, get an aerial view of his favorite city? No. He decided to go high up in the sky and stalk a woman. This is at least what reports are saying. This bizarre yet shocking story comes from New York. The subject of this outlandish story is Michael Arnold. He's 65 years old. Arnold is now being accused of a grave crime, one that is as creepy as it is bizarre. Reports allege that Arnold flew his plane high up in the sky only to stalk his obsession while she went about her day. He routinely flew his plane over her home for 4 years. An FBI agent says Arnold had been stalking his alleged victim for 4 years. Authorities in New York say that Arnold was spotted flying low over the alleged victim's neighborhood. It gets worse. His obsession wasn't just limited to admiring her from the skies, but also raining tomatoes on her. Yes, reports say that he threw tomatoes at her from the plane. Like I said, bizarre. His alleged victim says her family would be awakened early in the morning by the sounds of Arnold's plane. The plane flew so close to her home, she says, that windows and doors rattled. And occasionally he pelted her with tomatoes. The woman in question feared for her safety for a long time. It seems she was aware of the eyes in the skies. She knew who Arnold was. He was a repeat customer at the cafe she owns. Arnold denies all the allegations against him. He has told authorities that he had no contact with the woman whatsoever, and that if he had wanted to harm her, he could have done so very easily, but never did. Lucky for her, he only showered tomatoes on her, allegedly. Well, he did this for 4 years. Michael Arnold has now been arraigned on charges of aggravated stalking, violating an abuse prevention order, resisting arrest, impeding a public officer, and providing false information to the police. Arnold has now been released, but on certain conditions. He's not allowed to have any contact with the woman, his alleged victim. He cannot stalk her. He has to stay at least 300 feet away from her, her home and her business. And you know what else he can't touch? Any airplane. Arnold has been ordered by the court to stop flying any aircraft. Stalking a woman from the skies. If the allegations against Arnold are true, the story becomes not just bizarre, but a symptom of deviant human nature. An example of how obsession can go too far. We've seen cases of celebrities being stalked, dangerously so. Very recently, actor Drew Barrymore came face to face with her stalker. He was hiding in plain sight among the audience when the actor was on stage. He came up to her and introduced himself, demanding she meet her when she was in New York. She had to be taken off stage by her security. Singer and actor Selena Gomez had a more terrifying experience. Her stalker broke into the guest house of her Calabasas home multiple times. Gomez later put up the house for sale. Pop icon Taylor Swift's stalker sent terrifying letters to her father claiming he was going to kill her entire family. He was arrested in 2016. Actor Jodie Foster's stalker is perhaps most infamous. John Hinckley Jr. was so obsessed with her that he followed her to Yale University when she was a student there, slipped messages under her door. His obsession grew after he saw the film Taxi Driver starring Foster. He grew obsessed with the disturbed protagonist who tries to kill a presidential candidate. And so, he attempted to assassinate President Reagan in 1981 to prove his love to her. He was later sentenced to life in a mental establishment. And these are celebs we're talking about who travel with an army of security. They have bodyguards around them. What happens to regular folk? You see, stalking affects millions in the United States alone, and this recent case should alarm us. There are stalkers who hide in plain sight, those who watch you from bushes. Some may stalk you on social media, but when a stalker watches you from the skies, what can you do? And with that, it's a wrap on Gravitas for tonight. Thanks for watching the show with me, Priyanka Sharma, leaving you with Gravitas images. Have a good weekend ahead.
This week on the West